The Georgia countryside in 1847 was a place of sprawling plantations, moss, draped oaks, and the heavy air of secrets that no one dared to speak aloud. The Barrett estate, nestled near the banks of a sluggish river, was one such place. It belonged to the Barrett family, a lineage steeped in old wealth and old power, where appearances mattered more than truth and tradition overshadowed conscience. The manor house, grand yet stern, stood as a silent witness to generations of history, both visible and hidden. Among the estate's many inhabitants were two young twin sisters, Clara and Margaret Barrett, aged just 12, yet already carrying themselves with a maturity that belied their years. The twins were inseparable, their bond forged not only by blood, but by shared experiences that the world around them could neither comprehend nor control. Clara and Margaret were born into privilege, but the Barrett estate thrived on the labor of enslaved people. From an early age, the twins were surrounded by these workers, who toiled under harsh conditions, tending the fields and the house. Among the enslaved were men who were remarkable for their strength, their intelligence, and their unspoken dignity. The twins, unlike other children of their station, found themselves drawn to these men, not out of rebellion nor mere curiosity, but from a strange, instinctive understanding that their fates were entwined. The estate's overseers and family members found it unsettling. The twins seemed to speak with the men in ways that no one else could understand, their laughter mingling in secret corners, their whispers crossing boundaries that should have been absolute. By the summer of 1847, rumors began to stir. Some claimed that Clara and Margaret had discovered a hidden part of the estate's history, a buried family secret that linked the Barretts and their enslaved workers in ways no record could confirm. Others whispered that the twins had developed an unnatural power, a gift that allowed them to bend the will of those around them without anyone realizing. Whatever the truth, it was undeniable that the twins had begun to act with a degree of independence and authority that unnerved the adult world. One sweltering afternoon, the twins disappeared into the woods at the edge of the plantation. Hours passed before they returned, their dresses tattered, their faces streaked with dirt, yet their eyes shone with a determination that frightened even their mother. They brought with them two enslaved men, both young and strong, who had never been allowed such proximity to the Barrett daughters. In hushed tones, the twins spoke of a pact, a private agreement that, once spoken aloud, could unravel the social order of the entire county. They claimed they wished to marry these men, not in the sanctioned church ceremonies reserved for the wealthy, but in secret, binding themselves in a union that no law would recognize and no society would condone. The notion was incomprehensible to anyone who had grown up in Georgia's rigid hierarchy. Marriage across lines of race and class was forbidden, punishable by law, and socially condemned. Yet the twins, with an almost eerie certainty, insisted that the bond they were proposing was sacred, spiritual, and irreversible. Clara, the elder by minutes, spoke of visions she had in the night, dreams where she and Margaret were surrounded by light, holding hands with their chosen partners as the world outside the forest vanished. Margaret added that she had heard the men's thoughts in whispers carried by the wind, confirming that they too wished for this union, a mutual desire that transcended fear and expectation. Their mother, a stern woman named Elena Barrett, was beside herself with anger and disbelief. She summoned the overseers and the family patriarch, warning them that such ideas were dangerous, that the twins were too young to understand the consequences of their actions, but the twins were unyielding. They had planned everything in secret, knowing that discovery could lead to punishment, but trusting in a force they could not name to protect them. On the night of the pact, the twins and the two men slipped quietly to the riverbank, away from prying eyes. The ceremony was simple, conducted under the pale light of the moon, with whispered vows that echoed through the trees. They promised loyalty, love, and protection, sealing their commitment with rings carved from wood and braided with strands of their own hair. News of the event eventually reached the Barrett household, though it arrived piecemeal and in hushed tones. Some of the servants whispered about lights in the forest and chants that could be heard on windless nights. The overseers, fearing scandal and punishment from the county, attempted to uncover the truth, but the twins were clever, moving with the stealth and cunning of children who had grown up observing power and its limits. The story spread slowly through the county, distorted in each retelling, becoming a mixture of awe, fear, and disbelief. The Barretts struggled with their own response. Publicly, they denounced the twins' actions, insisting that nothing of the sort had occurred. Privately, Elena Barrett wrestled with a sense of unease. She could not deny that her daughters had shown remarkable agency, courage, and intelligence. She feared for their futures, knowing that any acknowledgment of the unions could provoke violent retaliation or legal reprisal. Yet she could not bring herself to punish them in the way she would have punished any other child who defied social norms. The twins, meanwhile, grew bolder. They would meet their husbands in secret, walking through the forest at dusk, speaking of freedom, equality, and a world that might one day recognize the bonds they had forged. The men, though young and constrained by the weight of enslavement, were loyal to the twins with a devotion that frightened many who observed from afar. Together, they devised ways to communicate without detection, using signals in the trees, markings on the riverbank, and songs sung softly to each other across the fields. These clandestine meetings deepened their connection and strengthened their resolve. Over the months that followed, strange occurrences were reported on the Barrett estate. Horses would refuse to enter the stables, tools would vanish only to reappear in peculiar places, and workers swore that shadows seemed to move with a mind of their own. Some attributed these events to divine punishment, others to the supernatural influence of the twins' secret unions. Scholars of later generations would speculate about the psychological and social dynamics at play, the ways in which a single act of defiance could ripple through a rigidly structured society, unsettling it in ways that could not be predicted. Despite the chaos, the twins remained steadfast. They took every precaution, knowing that discovery could mean exile, imprisonment, or worse, yet their love and commitment to their chosen partners only grew stronger. By the end of the year, the twins had crafted a network of allies among the enslaved population, who recognized the courage and vision of Clara and Margaret. They spoke in whispers of a new order, where loyalty and affection would not be constrained by the arbitrary lines drawn by society. As the years passed, the Barrett estate continued its operations, but the twins' actions left an indelible mark. The two couples, though forced to live in the shadows of legality and propriety, became symbols of resistance, love, and the possibility of defying a world built on oppression. Their story, preserved in letters, oral traditions, and fragmented records, puzzled historians for decades. Many questioned its veracity, dismissing it as folklore or exaggeration. Yet enough evidence survived, the testimony of those who had witnessed the unions, the subtle changes in the estate's dynamics, and the echoes of the twins' courage in the lives of those they had touched, that the tale could not be entirely dismissed. The forbidden pact of 1847 became a quiet legend whispered among those who valued love, courage, and defiance over blind obedience. Clara and Margaret Barrett, the Georgia twins who married their own enslaved men, left a legacy that challenged the moral and social order of their time. Their actions were a testament to the power of human connection and the unyielding desire for freedom and equality. They demonstrated that even in the darkest chapters of history, acts of bravery and love could shine brightly, casting light into corners that the world would rather leave in shadow. In the decades that followed, scholars, writers, and storytellers would revisit the tale, searching for its meaning and implications. Some framed it as a story of forbidden love, others as a moral lesson on courage and defiance. Yet all agreed on one point: the Georgia twins had acted with a vision that transcended the narrow confines of their society. Their story endured, not because it was sanctioned or celebrated, but because it was true to the hearts and minds of those who had lived it. Even today, the Barrett estate stands as a monument to a complicated past. The grand house remains, though the original inhabitants have long since passed. Visitors report an odd stillness in the air, a sense of something unseen watching from the woods, a reminder that the events of 1847 left more than history. They left a spirit. The twins' secret marriages, once forbidden and unthinkable, are now remembered as a symbol of human resilience, a reminder that love and courage can flourish even under the harshest conditions. Their story continues to captivate those who encounter it, challenging assumptions about race, power, and the capacity of individuals to shape their destinies, regardless of the world that seeks to constrain them. The Georgia twins, Clara and Margaret Barrett, and their husbands never received public recognition in their lifetimes, yet their lives rewrote the possibilities of what could exist within the rigid structures of their world. They found freedom not in the eyes of the law or society, but in the choices they made for themselves and for each other. And in doing so, they forged a legacy that endures far beyond the boundaries of time, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit and the quiet defiance of those who dare to love against all odds. Their story, shrouded in mystery yet illuminated by courage, remains one of the most compelling accounts of resilience and forbidden love in American history. The tale of the Georgia twins who married their own enslaved men is more than a historical footnote. It is a reminder that in the pursuit of love and justice, even the youngest and seemingly weakest among us can change the course of lives and history itself.